welcome back. We are here on Christmas Eve, and I want, for those of you that celebrate Christmas or any holiday, I want to wish you a wonderful holiday, a wonderful Christmas. Today, I enjoy Christmas Eve. That's when I relax, I think. I get to sit down, I think, and I reflect. And I hope you'll take just 1 minute for that. But when I reflect, I know one of the items that I will think about is all of you. Thank you for all of your support, all of your encouragement to me, your ideas, your enthusiasm, your creativity, your excitement. Thank you for being here, and I hope you will all continue with me in this journey for 2024. I'm going to stop it there because I'm sure I'm going to have more to say tomorrow. But on to what we're doing. We are on our 4th video. We have one more left after this, and it is in the vintage theme for these 5 videos here. So now we kind of, in the beginning, it was all what I'm going to call full-blown vintage, the style that I like. And then the next one, we kind of calmed down just a little bit. And the one in the center, yep, we calmed down even more. Now we're going to come back up again. So that's what we're going to do with this one. We've got these beautiful layered candy canes, and we're going to have a beautiful backdrop. I'm actually going to show you in this one how to create a backdrop using acrylic paints. So maybe you don't have sprays, pattern paper, but you've got these acrylic paints, and they can be any acrylic paints. So those acrylic paints that are in the tubes that you can buy in the big sets, all the way up to the artist qualities. They can be any ones that you want to use. I'm going to show you how we work on that, how I create it when it comes to that type of a medium. And I also put it on a piece of glass. So you'll see that as we go through that process there. So that's like the main technique. And then we're going to be doing just some collaging in behind this, and we're going to have some foliage going on. So yeah, and then of course the final one, we all know where I'm heading for that one. Okay, so grab your supplies. If you have those acrylic paints, grab those, focus in on that part of the video. That's something that I haven't shown in a while. But also grab a focal point and some foliage and some pattern paper. Let's tear up some papers and have some fun with them in the background. So let's grab all of that. I'm going to switch over to a voiceover. As always, it's Gabby, just like this is here in the beginning. And then I will come back in the end and be even more Gabby. So let's get started. As always, we're going to start with our background. This is going to take a little bit to dry, and I'm using acrylics. Maybe you don't have sprays. Maybe you don't have, all of those, the ink sprays or watercolors. You can certainly use acrylics, and they can be any acrylics. So if you have dollar store acrylics or those other bottles that you can buy in sets, you can use those as well, like I've said before. I'm actually going to walk you through this process once we go through it. You can see in more detail when it comes to talking about this. Because again, the video is sped up. So for me to try to keep up with this, wow, yeah. Whew, that would have been tough, and I would have lost my breath, I think. The colors I chose are this bright pink, this light blue, this deep brown, and a tan, and then there's a white, a pearl white up in the upper left-hand corner. Long strokes, going back and forth, and just adding these colors just to get a hint of those colors in the background when it comes to working on this panel. Now I'm using, the cardstock that I'm using is a Bristol Vellum cardstock. So you can use Bristol Vellum, you can use a mixed media, you can use the Canson XL watercolor paper, because they are made to take water. And there is a lot of water in this panel. It was completely sprayed with water first. That's what's going to help to get these acrylics to move the way that we want them to move. And I like the airbrush effect when it comes to them. Now, of course, you know, when you have these big tubes here, and you can never just get a little bit out, a big clump comes out. So I push on the tube, and then when I'm down in the paint, I push out and it sucks the paint back in. So yeah, just another way. I do save this paint before somebody says, okay, that's a lot of paint to waste. I do not waste my paints. I love my acrylics. You can do a lot with acrylics. These can replace the ink sprays, the pearl sprays, and all of those sprays, and they are more cost effective. So keep that in mind. So I'm going to switch over and I'm going to explain in more detail what was going on here. Okay, so I'm just going to come in here real quick. So you saw when it comes to this process, a piece of glass really does work. Now this mat here is by Glassboard Studio. It's the same company where I have my larger one. That just sits on another table because of filming that ever since I changed the room, filming issue. Fun. So I had purchased a smaller one, and oh, I love this one. Love this. This always stays right here. So I first sprayed with water. Okay. Just put a little bit of water down on the glass mat, and it can be just a general piece of glass. Take it from a picture frame. Sprayed that down, and this is Bristol Vellum or smooth cardstock. You could also use, I would also use Canson XL watercolor, so something that's going to take the water. Now by putting the water down on the glass mat first, okay, and then putting the paper down, it like suctions to the paper. All right, it just goes right down onto it. And then I spray the top. So now the whole paper is just fully saturated with water. So that's why this is staying flat. I put my colors of paint on the side, and yes, it does not need much because you're adding water to that paint to brush it back and forth. And I go in long strokes to make sure I go past the bottom, above the top, past the bottom, above the top. And you saw the colors that I used. They look very odd. This is titanium buff. This is a light blue. This is a light rose or a medium, there you go, medium magenta, and then a dark brown. To get this colorway, just to get all these different colors going. Now, if you want the colors more vibrant, then just put heavier streaks down, okay? And I'll be able to slowly put it back into my tubes. So you don't need that much when it comes to this. Now, I will clean up around the sides, and you saw that I started doing that. I'll take a baby wipe around the sides when it comes to this, and then I will also take that baby wipe very lightly and go back and forth on it. I know I didn't have that filming. But again, what's a video without me hitting that record button? And then just going back and forth. Now, here's where the patience comes in, which I have none. Let it dry. Let your panel dry, just like this. Don't take it off. You can lift it, like I have lifted this to clean up underneath it, but it is sloppy, wet cardstock. It's Bristol Vellum. So it's holding on to that water. So I did clean underneath it, and then I've placed it back down, and it's going to suction back to the glass. And again, for me, these are the things that happen for me. Okay, before somebody says, well, that didn't happen for me. Okay, this is how I do it. And then I just let this dry. I don't bother it. I don't fiddle with it. I go clean something. I go work on something else. I try to find something else to do. It's very tough because I have this idea going on in my head here for the card, and I just want to get it done. But this takes a good long time for it to dry. So you can, that's why I like it also on the piece of glass or something like that, because now I can pick this up, move it out of my way, and then work on another project if I have to. Okay, because it's, you know, totally transportable, which is awesome. Awesome. Okay, so just wanted to talk through that just a little bit. I know you saw it. I know I talked through it. But again, the video sped up, so I'm really trying to keep up with the video as I'm talking. Just wanted to take it back into a normal speed. That's what this is going. And you can see each of the colors. I mean, you can see the brown. You can see the shade of blue going on there. The blue going on in here. I just like to take these colors and really mix them together to give a subtle hint of them. Now, this white one is a pearl metallic. So I have a little bit of a sheen going on in there. Not much, because I do sense that the blizzard will be coming in on this card this evening. Yes. So stay tuned for that. All right. So we're going to go back to voiceover. I will be back creating this, continuing this card once this panel dries. That's where we will start. So I'm going to keep this right here. All right. Here we go. Okay. So after a while, this is now dried, and you can see that it's only curled up a little bit on the sides. Now again, you want to make sure that your piece is dry as you're working with it. And I can still feel some dampness on this, but it keeps it relatively flat because you are literally soaking this paper. It's like stretching a piece of watercolor paper in that process that they do, because you're wetting all the fibers all at once. So what I'm going to do, sorry, I've bent over there. So what I'm going to do is I am going to heat this with my heat tool. I'm going to switch back over to a voiceover, and you're going to see that it's going to curl a little bit, but that's okay. It'll be fine. And we're going to, we'll actually set that aside first before I do that and get our pieces all together. All right. So if you have any questions on this, just put them down below and I'll make sure I'll answer them. All right, here we go. While that's drying now, so I hope that that helps to know what I do there when it comes to acrylics and how you can get that look. Let's work on our focal pieces. I have here these adorable candy canes. Again, using traditional colors. Now again, going off of traditional. So when we started the vintage series, full-blown vintage, you know, vintage image, stamp, all of that stuff. Then we came down into the sled, just using our die cuts, using foliage. Foliage for me is also a good thing for vintage, that old style sleigh. You know, how many times have we seen those as a centerpiece? My grandmother had one every year. And she made it every year. So to me, that's reminiscent, but a little bit lighter, not so much. Yes, we did the background. We added the vintage photo to the background. When we came to the bells, we only added vintage photo to the side of the bells, and that was it. There was no vintage photo anywhere else. We kept the colors true. We even added some stickles. We just added the brown cardstock with the gold sentiment. Now we're going to kind of ramp it back up into the vintage style that I like. But getting, this one's showing getting out of traditional colors, using those acrylics for our background. It's a pink background though, with a touch of blue, with a little bit of pearl. The brown has gone away. It mixed in with the pink, and the tan just tones down that neon pink that I was using. So again, using pink, who would think vintage pink? Of course, absolutely, because we're going to push her and knock her back down like we did before. We have candy canes here in beautiful bright reds, greens, and whites. We have a holly leaf, we have some pine needles, and a beautiful big red bow. So we're going to be adding all of these different elements. So not traditional colors for Christmas that we would think of vintage, but we're pulling all of this together and showing that even these types of colors can be made into a vintage. Have this beautiful holly leaf, adding some of those glossy accents to it to make it shiny like holly leaves are. I think this is a great technique. Please remember, once you are done doing this, get your brush into water. Ask me how many brushes I've gone through. Just kidding. No, I'm not. And because I want dimension and lift on my cards, yes, I'm going to add, you know, I've die cut these images two or three times to give that bulk to that. And that just helps with, you know, that whole look. Once these are together, see, now here's the start of the vintage photo. Now I went around the berries. I don't know why, because they're pretty much hidden, but I wasn't quite sure. So when you're never sure, you know, always check. I am going to bring in my heat gun just to get this dry. Now you can tell when I go to the front, go to the back, it's curling up. When I push it back to the front, it flattens out again. When you're drying a piece, you want to do that. You want to flip it on both sides so that it'll flatten itself back out. But there is some curl to this. I am using my Uline double-sided 2-inch film tape again, because this is going to flatten this panel out. And you can see the moisture that was still sitting in there, because as you use that heat gun, it just pushes it right out. It, like, you know, splashes it right out of that piece. I'm going to have a mat here. We're making a 5x7 card, and I am going to go around this using my vintage photo. And we're going to go around it heavily. I really want this to have that, and I'm also going to come around the edge with black soot. Yes, you heard that, black soot. And there's a reason. I could just stop with the vintage photo and be fine. Remember, in my mind, the vintage photo works on any color, whether it's pink, purple, gray, orange, anything. It works on those colors. You're going to see, though, there's another color that I'm going to push in. Now, the way that I'm putting that black soot on is just, it's not the same way that I put the vintage photo on. I just want this around that direct edge. So now you can see it's got this frame for that mat. I'm going to remove the release paper, get it down on one edge when I know it's centered, and then walk it across. And now our piece and our panel is flat. I'm also going to put the tape on the back of this mat to go onto our 5x7 card base. That will just ensure that the panel will be flat and it won't pull and make that card panel curl. It will keep it flat. I have the card with me here. It's been about 48 hours since I've made it, and it is still flat. Not the things on top of it, but it is flat. Now we're just looking at the arrangement, looking at, okay, where do I want these candy canes to sit? How is the arrangement going to work? Where do I want them to cross? I've pulled in a piece of music sheet paper, went around it with vintage photo, and here's black and white polka dot. I went around that too with the vintage photo for the edge, and now we're going to get our pieces in place. And I also have a piece of dictionary page. It's nice fine print. And we're going to get our strips down in place. That's the reason why I brought in the black soot just around that edge, because I knew I was going to have this black piece of pattern paper sitting there. Again, black, sitting in the back of candy canes. I'm going through some of my ephemera that I have. They are the Christmas packets by Tim Holt. I love his ephemera. You're going to see it a lot more in video 5. Yes. Each one I will go around with the vintage photo. It frames each piece. How could we not have a peppermint sign coming in? And I wanted to make sure that the peppermint sign was seen. So had to have that up in the corner. I thought it was just fitting. And we're going to go around that as well. We're going to start gluing our ephemera pieces in place. So we have December 25th, we have the December calendar, we have the peppermint, and now we're going to work on our candy canes and getting those. Now, notice too that for the candy canes, I did not go over the candy canes with the vintage photo. I just left them alone. I know that there's going to be a lot of greenery on top of them. And I just didn't think it was necessary. Now for the second one that's going over it, I am going to add some double-sided foam squares just to keep it even as it goes across, so it's not wiggling or teetering back and forth. I'm going to add a little bit of glue to that and then just set that one down in place. Now the greenery is going to come in. We're going to let these pine needles go down through the bottom and just adding glue to the centers as we go. And then the holly leaves are going to come in on an angle, setting that right on top. Next, the berries are going to come in and we're going to nestle those right on top as well, applying pressure so that that glue gets all through, and then looking at where the bow is going to go. I want the bow to be in the center of this cluster, so I'm going to add the red stickles first to each of the berries, and then we'll add the bow on top. Now remember, the stickles is almost like a glue type, a glitter glue, so this is going to help just reinforce that bow into place. I'm going to come in with some shimmer for that bow and just applying pressure to push all of that down to let that glue adhere so the bow stops spinning on me. And again, just lightly adding some shimmer to that. You'll see it as it turns. Now, what's really funny is here's where I ended the video and started talking about it. But what are we missing? We are missing the snowstorm. Yes. This is not a blizzard, but this was a nice heavy snow. So we are going to add some white splatters. We are going to add some gold splatters. Now, I'm not using my normal brush, which I was very upset about. There is a brush. Yes, I'm a loon. There is a brush that I specifically use for my splatters. It came from a Prang watercolor set. It is the best brush, perfect size for the perfect splatters. I do come in off camera and add those to this. And a little bit of gold. Alrighty, you can see where we're going when it comes to the vintage. But again, using one of your dies, you can do this. Now, you can use downloadable or printable downloads. There's many wonderful makers out there where you can get these types of pieces, vintage ephemera, so that you can, place it around. Or these are just some music sheets. This is from a dictionary. This is a piece of pattern paper, and you can use those as well. And then if you should have number dies, you can add those and so forth. So you can create your own ephemera when it comes to creating this image. And again, I did that same thing with the holly leaves, painting on the glossy accents. I just love the way that looks. The beautiful greenery there. It looks like it's tied up with that bow. Traditional green and red candy canes. And then I found that I just had to put the peppermint advertisement on there. And again, with these, there's no need to add a sentiment. Now, this does add some dimension, definitely, to your card. So postage will go up. Or this is something that we hand deliver. I do love to collage. Not everybody does. It's just something that I just love the layers, the look, the dimensions that it gives when it comes to collaging. You could take away all of this stuff underneath the candy canes and just have those candy canes there and add a sentiment on the bottom. There's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely not. All right. So I hope I also gave you some tricks. I know I stated it probably like twice or 3 times the way that I did this panel. Simply using acrylic paints. Don't need to have the sprays or the inks or anything like that. You could actually use your acrylic paints to get that look in the background. Or a piece of pattern paper will do just fine as well. If you have any questions, make sure you leave those down below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Make sure you subscribe and hit that thumbs up, and don't forget to ring the bell to make sure that you know when the next video is live. It is Christmas Eve, and for those of you that celebrate Christmas, I wish you a very Merry Christmas tomorrow. But I will be back with our last video on Christmas Day. Enjoy the process. Time is for family and friends right now, but I always find a few minutes in my crafty space. It helps with my sanity. Enjoy. Have fun creating your art, and please know you are creating the art. And remember, always be creative in everything that you do each and every day. And I will talk to you in the last video. Till then.